Time for today's top stories and stern words from Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. In an interview with state media, he warned the West shouldn't underestimate the risk of nuclear conflict as the battle for Ukraine continues. He also claimed that by supplying Kyiv with weapons, NATO is effectively engaged in a proxy war with Moscow. A Sydney court's heard former New South Wales detective Gary Jubelin threatened to destroy a former person of interest during the investigation into William Tyrrell's disappearance. Bill Spedding, who's suing the state for malicious prosecution, alleges Jubelin had it in for him. Spedding was cleared of any involvement in William's disappearance. Scott Morrison was in Townsville today announcing a $70 million hydrogen hub for the region. But the PM was forced to defend the Coalition's 2050 net zero emissions policy after a Nationals candidate in Queensland claimed it wasn't binding.
Our commitment to net zero by 2050, it is the government's absolute policy. What he was referring to was our pathway to it.
His comments follow Anthony Albanese's promise today that Labor won't impose a carbon tax on polluters. And if you believe the bookies, the odds have swung back in Labor's favour to win the next federal election next month. Things had swung the Coalition's way, but as of today, the TAB has the ALP at $1.60 to win. Even with Anthony Albanese in ISO, the Coalition sits at $2.35.
The good thing about betting on the election is you do have a tiny little bit of control over the outcome. Tiny little bit of match fixing going on.
So you reckon your vote might tip it?
It might just tip the election.
do it.
Yeah, and bring you about $20.
Do you reckon they bet on themselves?
The politician?
Yeah.
Well, that's a really good
I don't
question.
know. Are they allowed to? Is that one of those things?
Well,
You're not allowed
they can't. Well, they can.
There's
as
no
Talia said, I
federal
guess,
archive.
rig it.
Yeah, that's right.
No federal
They're not
archive.
like sports stars. They don't need to observe rules.
Yeah.
The thing about this is interesting is bookies are always the most reliable guides as to who was going to win the election.
Forget the polls.
Yes, but then the last election didn't work at all. Because you remember those betting agencies, it was one big one, maybe more, paid out on Labor winning the election.
Yeah, that
and
didn't
then, of
work
course,
Because they
it
were
ended up
so sure
happening.
it's going to happen.
So if we can't trust the bookies, Pete, who can we trust?
Who can we trust? Elon Musk,
Yeah.
obviously.